Welcome back to the show, Business Mastery for Startups, Scale-Ups, and Early Stage Businesses with your host, Jerry Gadori. That's me. And this week, for a guest, we have Phil Portman. Now, Phil should be especially exciting on the show because he's exited from more than one startup, so he knows whereof he speaks. He's written a business book called The Three Keys, which you can get on Amazon right next to mine. It also hosts a podcast called Let's Talk Success, which I'm proud to be jumping on as well. So you'll be able to see me there as well. Phil, that was a woefully inadequate introduction. Would you care to expand a little bit?
That's all right. Yeah, thank you so much. I have had several startups, including the one that I'm running right now, the founder and CEO of TechStrip, which is a business texting platform. And I also run the podcast Success Is, where we ask people the simple question, what does success mean to you? And they come from a variety of different backgrounds and industries, and then take some of the key nuggets that they've given to us around what success means to them, but also how they've achieved their version of success. And so I took some of that content and then some of the stuff that I've experienced over the years and kind of distilled it down and came up with the book, The Three Keys to Success. And in it, we talk about some of the key attributes that or similarities that these people from all these diverse different backgrounds have. And I've distilled it down to three that I think are most important. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got to say, so for somebody who's exited several businesses, is currently running a foundation, which makes me, running a startup, which makes you wonder about addiction, runs a podcast on success. One thing I've always wanted to ask founders is how much is enough? Like when do you put your hand up and say, I'm there? Or is it a never ending journey? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Something I experienced when I was younger. When I hit this point where I had become a multimillionaire and had everything around me and was still working 7 days a week, 12 plus hours, and asked myself that question: what is enough? I achieved all the dreams, all the things that I had written down when I was younger, and I was still working harder than, the guy working the 9 to 5 next to me, the guy that when he clocks out, goes home, doesn't think about his work. And I was thinking that to me looks like success, right? Like he's not haunted with all of these things that he has going on and the pressure, and he's not up at 2 a.m. working on some server issues in the middle of the night and things like that, right? So, I think a lot of people chase success and happiness as something just around the corner, more money, more recognition, more something. But in that chase, they're missing the life that they're living right now. So for me, it was finding the inner work in myself to find happiness now in this moment. And then making sure the things that I'm doing around me, be it the nonprofit, the podcast, writing the book, the new endeavors that I take on, do they align with those core values that I have as a person now? And it started with, why was I working this many hours? Did I need to? No, I didn't need to be working that many hours. Okay, well, why am I? If somebody else can take over these tasks, why am I doing this? And I slowly realized I can't be at peace. I couldn't be at peace. Every time I was doing nothing, quote unquote, nothing, and that would be categorized as spending time with my family, going on vacation, sitting down to relax for a minute, right? Going for a walk, exercising, I was still hit with this anxiety that I should be doing something. And I had to treat that first. I had to fix that part first. And so when I really examined that and fixed that first, I found that I was okay with the silence. I was okay with the relaxing. And the things I took on in my life now aligned around the values, around the things I wanted to do. And I was okay letting go of the other things because my inner peace and happiness were the most important things to my life. Not only mine, but obviously my family's as well and those people around me. So that kind of changed the perspective for me. When you're constantly living with that need to please others and go after something else, when your pursuit is not aligned with your values, when it's focused on ego, when it's focused on competition, then you're never going to find that happiness. And that comes from somebody who's experienced this. And I've talked to many other successful people out there who will say the same thing. If you're constantly chasing that other thing or trying to compete against somebody else, you're really going to struggle in finding that happiness and fulfillment. It starts with the inner work first.
Yeah, it sounds almost like, not to put on my completely unqualified psychiatrist hat, but it sounds almost like you were using your business as a way of coping with anxieties, or filling a void. And I think that's really astute of you to have realized that, if I'm interpreting what you said correctly, that you hadn't found an alignment between your personal values and what you were achieving, and so that quest continued until you did. Is that an accurate summation?
You got it. What's your bigger purpose in life? Why are you on this planet? What do you really want? Do you really want money? Is that really what you want? I mean, money does great things, but what happens when you reach that goal? Have you fulfilled your purpose in life? Is it done at that point? Right? Do you want accolades from people around you? Are you competing with the neighbor across the street to have a more expensive car or bigger house or better lawn? What is it? Start with the examining on that, and then peel back the onions. What's causing that? In my situation, I grew up one of 7 children, raised by a single mother, and we were very poor, very poor. And so when I got into my future, a lot of the things that drove my success were my work ethic. And I found that not only did I have that anxiety that you described, but my siblings did too. You could never say that, we didn't have great work ethic in our family. We outworked everyone else around us. But you can't do that your entire life. And you'll eventually hit at some point when you burn out. And so it starts with examining that, and also defining what your bigger purpose is. What's your legacy in this lifetime? What are you trying to achieve? And what is truly going to make you happy, and why? And when you start peeling back the onion about the competition and the next achievement and things like that, and you start peeling back what's causing those, you get to the root cause, and then you examine those and say, is that really me? Am I really that person? Or is this triggered by something else that was from my childhood or my growth? Once again, we're getting into the psychology around it. But that's what it really started with for me, was examining that, peeling back that onion, and then deciding, I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to live with purpose. I want to live with focus. And so for me, my son is autistic. And so we've made a couple different commitments. One is we're supporting with our farm a nonprofit called Michigan Horse Therapy for special needs children with horse therapy. We've seen horse therapy do some amazing things with my son, and we want to help out other families with that. And then the other thing, because I have a disabled son myself, my current goal is to hire 20% of people with disabilities in my companies. That's my immediate focus. And we've partnered with an organization here in Michigan to kind of help us do that. And so my bigger purpose is to ultimately leave the world behind better than when I entered it. And
That's
I
awesome.
think if other people kind of have that kind of same mentality or something similar, then you're living with purpose instead of chasing the next big win.
You said there's a lot there to unpack, but there's 3 things that I think I'd really like to poke at and talk more about. The first is real quick, just the story. It always amazes me how much the experiences that we lived through in our childhood impact us as adults in ways that, until we stop to analyze them, that we don't even see. So growing up, there's a big Polish community in the town that I live in, and lots of first generation Polish folks. And growing up, my neighbor was that. So she and her husband were first generation Polish. Her son's son was my age. So her grandson was my age. They had built an over-under duplex right on the water. And they were really nice people, really, really nice people. And reclusive is too strong, but they definitely kept to themselves. So fast forward, 30, 40 years, they pass away. The wife passed away, and then the dad passed away. And Richard, their son, the dad of my friend, they went down there and they cleaned everything out. And they found coffee cans, the old big Folger cans, full of tightly rolled money. There was about $30,000 in small bills stashed throughout their house. And the reason was they survived the post-World War II Poland, where banks couldn't be trusted. So every time they had money they didn't need to spend, it got turned into a tight little roll and then shoved into one of these cans till they were full. It was closed, wrapped, and put somewhere safe because they didn't trust banks. And obviously in 1970s, 1980s United States and Massachusetts, not a concern. But the world they grew up in, that wasn't the case. That's the first part. Just always amazes me. You grew up, with a mom with 7 children. What enough money meant to her, I'm sure, is wildly different than what that meant to you. And that drove that, incredible work ethic. So that's the first part. The second part, I'm a huge Stephen Covey fan. I think 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is the most important business book ever written. I give it as a graduation present to every high school kid in my family when they graduate. It's part of their present. Huge advocate. And one of the things he talks about, and of his 7 habits, it's the one that really clicks for me the most, is beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
If you understand when you start an endeavor what you're looking to achieve, not only are you more likely to make the right choices that lead down the right path, but you can also do what you're describing, Phil, and that's analyze your motives.
Yeah.
That, again, and this leads me naturally to the third thing, and then I'll shut my pie hole for a minute and let you talk. Where you are in your life often dictates what the right answers are.
Yeah.
So if you took everything you said right now and applied it to 20-year-old Phil, even though you're the same person, it's probable a lot of those answers, because of the stage of life you're in, wouldn't make sense. So one of the things that I talk to exited founders out about a lot is especially if they're on a second or a third business, be mindful of the advice they give to first-time founders.
Yep.
Obviously, we want to help. We're trying to clear a path and maybe help them avoid some of the mistakes we made. But some of the answers we give, especially around work-life balance, that's stuff we can say now because we have a baseline we didn't have back then. So in our desire to give them good, usable advice, sometimes we accidentally give them advice that's 100% right for us and 100% wrong for them. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I say that to say I've seen it more than once. In the beginning stage of my first startup, same as you, 7 days a week. When was your work day? Until it ended. That was what that was,
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with you on that. And don't take what I'm saying to off this and say, hey, I need to work 4 hours a week or 4 hours a day.
I don't think you were saying that. I don't think you were saying that.
What I'm saying is to answer your question of when is it enough, right? And I've been in situations where something goes wrong in one of my companies in my business, and I am fully invested time commitment onto it because then I have an obligation to my customers, my employees, my vendors to put the time into it. And there are times in your life, there's stages in your life where you need to hustle, you need to work, you need to have that work ethic, you need to grind it out to have success. And so I certainly don't want to take away from that. But on the flip side, if you never have a larger purpose and your life is simply grinding away forever, endlessly, you're never going to find happiness. You'll burn yourself out.
100% agree.
And on the flip side, though, in those moments when you are grinding it out, when you're putting in the work and effort, if you do have a larger purpose that you're striving towards, it doesn't feel like work. It can be fun. It could be adventurous when you're doing it, as long as you have that North Star, that thing that you're focusing on. Something I actually talk about in my book is setting those goals. Yeah. One of the things that you'll find from successful people in any endeavor is they have written goals, not just in their head. They have written goals written down for what they're trying to achieve in their life. And that is one of the stark differences that I've seen from people that bounce around from careers, struggle with depression, not really sure what they want to do in life, versus the people that just seem to get things figured out. They just get it done. They have clear written goals and they have a North Star that they're heading towards.
Yeah, I think grinding for grinding's sake is a losing path. And it's interesting because even the apostle of that mindset, Gary Vee, doesn't speak that way anymore. And if you remember back in the day, that was his whole message: 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I'm sitting in the bathroom and I'm still working. It was just crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, and he doesn't even say that stuff anymore. But circling back to what you said, having a mission is so key. And that's key, but I want to, you only touched on it, and it's something that I talk about and I think just never gets enough attention, and that's engagement. In my experience, the biggest cause of burnout is disengaged effort. I mean, either I'm working my tail off for something I don't understand, or I'm working my tail off with no idea of what win looks like. So I never feel like I'm winning. I just feel like I'm Conan and Conan the Barbarian walking that circle. The only thing I'm making is a rut in the ground, and that's just so defeating. But when you've got a mission bigger than you, when you're working towards something, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it matters less than having the mission. What's right for you is just that, right for you. Your driving passion might do nothing for me, and vice versa. What matters is that you've got it, and you've got it, in mind enough that when those times come, you can go to bed tired and happy instead of going to bed tired and dreading the next day where you're probably going to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like digging a hole and then burying that hole and then redigging that hole again, right? You just keep digging that hole and over again. That is a life without purpose or direction.
Yes.
No plan. Versus on the other side, one of my first jobs was building houses, construction, framing houses. Had no skill, so it was a tough job, carrying heavy lumber and the work outside and the heat and all that stuff. It was terrible from that aspect. And the guys I'd see in their 40s with blown out backs and knees, I knew this wasn't a long-term job. But one thing is I could look back and see the house that we were building. You could see the wall, could see the things being constructed. You could literally see the plans that we were laying out come into play as we were building it day by day. And in business, that's a lot more difficult to do, to see the house, to see the plans, and then see it being built day by day by day. When you have that, it's a much more rewarding experience. You don't feel like you're digging the hole and then burying the hole again and then digging the hole on this endless treadmill of never moving forward. So start exactly like you said, with the end in mind, and spend time really mapping that out. What is your long-term purpose? What is your goal? What is your North Star that you're working towards? And then when you are grinding things out, when you are struggling, when you're hitting roadblocks, you understand that these are minor setbacks towards the larger purpose. These are just waves in the ocean. You're still heading towards that North Star.
100% agree. Those are the price of the ticket, tickets to admission. So couldn't agree more. Let me ask you this. We've kind of covered a lot of territory. If you could give one piece of advice to any business owner or founder or early stage leader, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, going back to what we've been talking about most on this call, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle culture. Chasing growth for the sake of it is never going to get you anywhere. But if you're intentional in using your business to grow, you have goal, you have clear written goals. Start with a clear vision of your life and your values and your priorities. What does fulfillment look like? And build your company around that. Because success isn't just scaling up, it's staying aligned while you do it. And what I found is if you put the value first, the business and the revenue will follow. The money will follow. But if you're chasing money for the sake of money, it's an uphill battle for you.
Couldn't agree more. I grew up predominantly in the services business world, and there's a joke that you're only as good as your last engagement. And really, if your focus isn't maintaining a high level of quality, all the businesses that I've been in are easy to start easy to get traction in, hard to maintain. And the reason they're hard to maintain is just that. If you don't have a North Star, if you're not willing to walk away from business because you can't crush it, you're gonna regret that choice.
Yeah, that's a good point we just brought up. Be willing to walk away from deals and things that don't align with your vision and your North Star. I'd argue that a lot of wisdom is knowing what you don't want to do or don't get involved with
100%.
more so than knowing what you do want to. I'm
You
sure
know,
you've probably experienced that yourself, right?
So yeah, I work with small businesses all day, every day. And at this stage in my career, I probably worked with 150, 160 different businesses. And I will rarely do this, but I will do it. I'll take an interim senior executive role, CEO, COO, president, just to get them to a point, get them either past a problem they're having or prepping for an M&A event or whatever it is. And it's exciting every time. But the biggest success I've ever had, I was on the founding team of a company called Apicero. We grew to 2,500 MuleSoft implementation consultants, 9 offices, 3 countries in under 5 years, and a 9-figure acquisition from NTT Data. That was the biggest success I had. I followed that up with working with a small custom software development company, and we really didn't accomplish much there. And I'll tell you very clearly why. In the first example, we built that company to sell. We picked the specific technology that we worked with. That was the only thing we worked with. We made that choice based on market data as to what was likely to do well over the next 5 years. The partner ecosystem of the company that owned it, which was Salesforce, which in those days, incredible partner ecosystem. And every decision we made was, does this support a sell in 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, and obviously wherever we were. And that was our North Star. We passed on opportunities to do other software development work. We passed on other opportunities to do other things. Why? Because we wanted a clean purchase. A company that wanted to buy a massive international MuleSoft bench for their company. We knew our target was going to be one of the big software implementation or consulting companies. That was obvious. So we basically built a ready-made bench for them to buy. And $250 million later, we did just that. But I followed it up with a custom software development company. And the founder, they were about 6-7 years old at the time. And I thought I could get them past this, but the founder believes strongly in the best customer is the one who'll sign the back of a check. So I could never get them to niche and pick a lane and work only that lane. And so we consequently would start a new idea, stop a new idea, start a new idea as we tried to differentiate her on something that was in no way differentiatable. I mean, we increased in the time I was there, but it was nothing magnificent. And the whole difference was in company A, we had the end in mind. Every decision we made moved down that path. In company B, we were just chasing money. What's going to keep the lights on?
Yeah. And I've seen that with too many companies. We had this SaaS partner, and their website, their platform was it was like onions, layers and layers and layers and things plugged on. And I remember talking to them going, what is going on with your platform? What are you doing? And this customer would request this, so we'd add this, and then this customer would add this and add this and add this. And they had no end in mind. So it was just, wherever the dollar was, they were pulling it in. And they had developed this Frankenstein type platform where they had stitched together all of these things, and it was not functional for their core users anymore. So it's incredibly important that you have that North Star, your purpose in mind, to know, yes, where you're heading, but also very, very important, what you don't want or what you're not interested in, what you're going to pass on. And you're going to pass on a lot of business opportunities. You're going to say no to a lot of things if you're going to be successful in business.
100% yes. That no is often more powerful than a yes. And when your product roadmap looks like the inside of a Scrabble bag, you know you're in trouble.
That's right.
Well, Phil, I feel like we've covered a lot of material. This feels like a natural ending. You're a wonderful guest. I'm happy to have had you on the show. I'd love to have you on another time to talk more about different things. If people want to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to reach out and get in touch or learn more?
Yeah, so Phil Portman on any of the websites. If you go to philportman.com, I also have a link to my book. It's on sale right now, The 3 Keys to Success. It is a a work manual, though. Keep that in mind. It's not a just read this book, throw it back on the shelf and forget about it. I have exercises in there that you will have to complete. So keep that in mind if you are picking up this book. It is hard work, but if you are struggling at figuring out what your North Star is, you're struggling at staying consistent, you're struggling at moving in the direction that you want, it's a great book for helping you find your success. So thank you so much for having me on the show, Jerry. Appreciate it.
I love that. All of the links that he mentioned will be in the show notes. I've also got a link directly to the book on Amazon as well. And one thing real quick before we wrap that I love about what he said about his book, folks, is that the difference between an unhelpful motivational book and something that will execute change in your life is if there are things to do that build over time. Because when you read a book and get excited, that's all fine and well. But we all know that when we put the book down, the excitement's gone inside of a week. But if you got exercises to do, that changes things. So great job, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Action is far more important than just the best plan you come up with. It's the action that produces the results.
100% yes. I look forward to being on your show later this week. And everyone else out there in audience land, thanks very much as always for tuning in. Continue being awesome until we speak again next week.